Wasting no time, let's pick up right where we left off and get these coolant ports plugged. Toys for life. To make the threads, we're just going to drill the holes out with a 7/16 inch drill bit. We use a pipe tap, which is 1/4 inch by 18 NPT, and we'll use a regular crescent wrench to turn the tap. You can get away with a handheld drill for this, but using a drill press is best if you have one, because that way you can ensure the holes are nice and straight. Using our 1/4 inch NPT tap, we start the process. Now NTP threads are tapered by design. That way when the plug goes into the hole, the further you screw it in, the tighter it gets, and that seals it off. So we want to just go a little bit at a time because there's not much material in the intake manifold, and keep test fitting the plug to make sure that it's nice and snug and then at the proper depth so that the face of the plug is just below the face of the intake manifold. Once you're satisfied, put a little pipe sealant with Teflon on the plugs and get them both started by hand. Screw them in and then snug them down with a wrench so they're nice and snug and sealed. And finally, make sure that the top of the plug is below the face of the manifold. Guys, before we go any further with the intake manifold, I'm going to take this opportunity to wrap the exhaust crossover because it's wide open, it's easy to get to right now, and it's in a location that does radiate a fair amount of heat into the intake track. And for that, I'm going to use this Design Engineering titanium exhaust wrap. I'm not going to lie, that's the first time I've ever wrapped exhaust pipe, and it was not fun. It was a pain in the ass. I'm not looking forward to doing it again, but hopefully that knocks the heat down a fair bit. Guys, before we dig into the Supercharger, let's evaluate its condition. This one's got 170,000 miles on it, and I can tell by the boost gauge that it does build boost quickly. And by all accounts, it seems to work just fine. So what I'm going to do is I've got another one here, which is essentially new, and I'm just going to compare it side by side so we can get a good idea if this is worth modifying or not. First thing you'll notice here from the front view is the size of this pulley compared to the stock. The stock is about 3.6 inches in diameter, and this one is 2.8, which means it spins a lot faster for the same engine RPM and builds a lot more boost. I like to just give them a little twist and feel for how smooth it is and the kind of noises it makes. We'll do the same thing with the new one. And actually this one feels a little bit rougher, probably because the rotors aren't fully worn in yet, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. Now from the side here, they're pretty close to identical. If you've got a sharp eye, you might be able to see a couple of subtle differences. The first one is this plug here was botched when I got it, and when I went to change the fluid, it was stripped, so I had to weld in a hex, and that works just fine, and you can't really see it when it's in the car, so I'm not worried about that. The second thing is, this is the 97 and older Supercharger, and they've got this provisioning for vacuum lines here in addition to the one that goes on top. And on the 98 and newer, it doesn't. They've done away with it, probably to make it simpler. I'm not sure. If I ever have to use this one on the Fiero, you can do it. You just have to do some reconfiguring of the vacuum lines to make it work. Other than that, the physical housing assemblies and the way they bolt down are identical. From the front view, they're basically identical, with the exception of this one is super clean. And the used one, of course, has your typical carbon buildup and that sort of thing. We can certainly clean that up. I did notice though on this one, look at that, that's a pretty good little ridge that would disrupt airflow a little bit, and I certainly would smooth that out even if I wasn't going to port this if it was going on my Fiero, because that's going to cause some turbulence. Funny enough, this one's much smoother. And if we take a good look deep inside here, you can see where the rotors are, and that's where the air comes in and gets pulled into the Supercharger. And on the older one, same thing, just dirtier. And you can see on the housing, it's a little bit scored, maybe from small amounts of debris getting in there throughout the years, I'm not sure, but I don't think it's excessive. We'll be able to get a closer look at that when we pull the rotor pack out. And from this side view, other than the size of the pulley, they're pretty much identical, so not much to look at here. Upside down is the view that's going to yield the most information, where you can take a good look at the rotor pack. And on the newer one here, you can see that they're nice, clean. They've been, they're coated, and this is what they look like new. And this one with 170,000 miles on it, they've got some carbon buildup. There's a couple of little nicks. Here's the worst nick coming up right there, where you can see the coating has separated a little bit. But there's no deep scratches or anything like that. So even though this is a little bit dirty, this rotor pack is fully serviceable and 100% usable. It's important to be humble and to recognize that through the years, more people have ported heads, intakes, superchargers, and either wrecked the part or lost horsepower or failed to gain any horsepower for a significant amount of work. And I don't pretend to be a porting guru, and I don't have a flow bench or anything like that. So what I've done is I've just done a ton of research on porting M90s and 112s. And there seems to be some common denominators in most of the reputable designs. You don't want to port these silencer ports here. I guess they're there to quiet things down. And if you make them any bigger, you're going to lose power. Don't try to plug them up with JB weld, because that'll fall off and get caught up in your supercharger. Some people have actually tried that. And you don't want to weld them up because it will warp the housing, and unless you really have the right equipment to hold it and to measure it and that sort of thing, you might wreck your housing by trying to TIG weld these silencer ports up. So we're going to leave those pretty much alone. The main area we're going to do is just extend the triangle down into these corners where you can see where I've etched the line, and then we'll kind of follow the red line of the gasket over. And then the same thing on this side, we'll move up to include, so we've got a bigger triangle. And then we're going to remove the flashing on this edge right here and bevel it a little bit so that the flow can come out of here a little easier. And that's about it. So I'm definitely going to resist the temptation to do any more porting than just that. As you can see, it will open up a fair amount of area, and anything else that I do is probably got a better chance of hurting performance as opposed to helping it. I've gone ahead and removed the boost bypass valve actuator, and I just wanted to talk about this for a minute because there's a lot of people wondering if there's horsepower to be made by getting rid of this. So what it is when you're just cruising at part throttle in a high vacuum situation with the engine, vacuum pulls on this diaphragm and the arm opens up this valve. And that allows any pressure that's being created by the supercharger rotors to be bypassed right through the manifold and right back into the intake so that you don't have any pressure being built at part throttle. I've gone ahead and drained the supercharger snout here of its fluid, and I've got it right inside here because it is the smelliest oil. If you've never smelt it, it smells like rotten socks. So you want to drain that and get it in a sealed container or your shop's going to stink. Next, let's remove the supercharger snout by removing all the perimeter bolts. And then have a hand on the snout while you give it a couple of taps and it'll just pop right off. Guys, that's going to do it for Blower and Manifold Mods Part 2. If you liked the video, hit that thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe so you can find Part 3 here coming in about a week. And as always, thanks for watching.